What's up, everybody? And right now we are reacting to Task and Purpose's video that they put up about 14 days, about 2 weeks ago. US Navy deploys to stop Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Now, I uploaded a video earlier today, or it would be today if it was in Britain. For anyone in America, it'll be super early this morning. Basically, the last video I uploaded was from New Year's Eve, from the 31st of December, where the US downed some Houthi attacks on a vessel. I watched that video, I reacted with you guys, and this is kind of like the second part of me learning about what's going on over there now, because I know nothing about it and I want to know more about it. For your interest, my background is a former Royal Marines commando, and I basically did my time abroad was spent doing anti-piracy. So I was working on ships, keeping an eye on what's going around and stopping any basically Somali pirates or whatever pirates are around us at the time, depending on where the boat was. Okay, so I have a little bit of knowledge. I can try and turn that little bit of knowledge I have and maybe translate anything that's said or give a bit more insight into what might be happening. So if you watched that video earlier today, I give my insight onto what might have happened from my perspective with my history. As always, there will be a link down below to the original video. Task and Purpose are phenomenal channel. They really are. Highly recommend you go and subscribe and like their video. It'll be down in the description. But for now, let's shut up. Let's pull this up and let's learn a bit of what's going on. Look at his face here. Let's learn a bit about what's going on, shall we? Longer video, 14.5 minutes. Sit back, let's enjoy it, let's learn.
Things are going buck wild in the Red Sea right now. To counter Houthi attacks on cargo ships in the Red Sea, the United States announced they've put together an international coalition of 10 nations. What's at stake here? Preventing these Houthi attacks from blockading one of the world's most transited and important shipping lanes for the global economy. The task force includes the United Kingdom, Canada, Italy, who will send guided missile destroyers and aircraft carriers to try to secure the waters off Yemen's coast.
So they've got the firepower. They've got the firepower.
This task force has been dubbed Operation Prosperity Guardian. But what prosperity is being guardianed? Take a look at the Red Sea behind me. 10% of all oil traded at sea passes through this route, and about $1 trillion in goods annually.
Just to let people know, you might be able to see my mouse here. When I was out, I landed in Oman, Salalah. I landed in, or was it Muscat I landed in? I landed in one of the two, and then I went to the other one. We went to Dubai. We went to a few other places, Bahrain and stuff like that. And we were around this area. 15%
of global trade passes through here. That's a lot of prosperity if you ask me. Since November 19th, 2023, Houthi factions in Yemen have launched 100 attacks with anti-ship missiles and attack drones aimed at civilian cargo ships. Houthis hijacked the Galaxy Leader, which is an Israeli-linked cargo ship, in a helicopter-borne raid. They still hold the ship and its 25 crew members hostage.
Oh my
Today,
God.
we're going to explore why all this blatant tomfoolery is happening, what the US naval response is going to be based on expert opinions, and we'll talk about some of the geopolitical factors at play. So the first thing you need to know...
Just want everyone to know before we get fully into this, this is going to be a very complex topic. Very complex, very sensitive to certain people. This is going to be a very big area to look on, and I'm sure no matter how much I love Task and Purpose, in a 14.5 minute video, they're not going to be able to explain everything that's going on. So just bear that in mind, okay?
Know is the main assets the United States Navy deploys in this region is the Arleigh Burke class destroyer. It's about 155 meters long and displaces 9,700 tons with heckin' 90 missiles on board.
Holy.
The guided missile cruiser can perform tactical land strikes with Tomahawk cruise missiles. So if they detect Houthi positions on land, they have the power to take them out.
Wow.
The USS Carney, Thomas Hudner, and Mason Arleigh Burke destroyers have already been deployed in the region, and they've intercepted and shot down over 38 munitions fired by Houthis since November. According to former Admiral Stavridis, the US Navy will command the new task force through the existing Task Force 153, which is a counter-piracy flotilla based in Bahrain. This is one of 5 task forces, and it's dedicated to the Red Sea in part.
Just so you know, that's where I went. I went to the US base in Bahrain when I was deployed.
These sailors on these ships have been on high alert, basically under daily attack from drones and missiles for the past month. The USS Laboon destroyer is also joining the team now. The coalition of ships sent are likely going to have a mix of interceptor missiles and tomahawks if they choose to destroy the Houthi rebel positions on land. Now they also have a 5-inch Mark 45 main gun that fires a 68-pound munition that has a range of about 24 kilometers or 14 miles.
Woo!
This cannon can be used in different roles though, including anti-ship, anti-air, and naval gunfire support. It has a fire rate of 20 rounds per minute with
It's a big boy. It's a big boy.
680 rounds on ship that can be used for close shore bombardment. According to this open source intelligence report that I found, there are 5 destroyers, an aircraft carrier, and 2 landing ships in the region already.
So people might be wondering why so much, right? We've watched videos in the past of when the US has just obliterated anything else out of the sea. Why so much? Why a coalition? Why not just the US? And why so much firepower? And the reason is because it's either one in or all in, right? They need to show a big amount of force here and say that we're not messing around. It's not a case of we're just going to send 1 or 2 ships, hope things are all right. That's not how this type of thing works, right? They might turn around and be like, we're just going to put out some Houthi raiders and take a few bits here and there. No, this is not how the West works with the UK and the US. They're like, we're going to send a lot out there because most of the trouble is around there anyway. We're going to send a lot out there and show force. It doesn't matter if we need it all. We've got it all.
And each of those landing ships has about 1,600 Marine infantry that have all been stuck together at sea, trapped on that ship, and are just dying for an excuse to go to shore.
It's true.
5 destroyers, each with 90 missiles, with some average infantryman math, that's like 450 missiles so far. Another report from @SchizoIntel on Twitter shows NATO submarines and additional vessels are already in the area.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All these locations are approximate and
okay, 1 second. Let's have a look here. HMS Lancaster is out there. HMS Diamond. HMS Bangor. HMS Middleton. And HMS Chiddingfold is out there. Anything else? His hand's covering one of them. I think that's all of the British vessels. Although some of them might be... Did Canada use HMS as well? Let me know in the comments. I don't know much about Canada's Navy, so let me know. Do they use HMS as well? My presumption is they do, right? We'll see.
Purposefully outdated by like a week so as not to break any OPSEC or put anyone in danger. But it gives us an idea of the increasing level of firepower here. You know me, I'm a former US Army infantryman, so I'm biased in favor of Israel and the United States and the West in general. Just putting my cards on the table so you don't feel like I'm hiding the ball when it comes to my perspective here. I can't help but feel some kind of way about all this, you know?
Yeah, the whole being me personally, let me talk about me firstly. I'm both a British and an American citizen now. I got my American citizenship about 4 years ago after living in America for 9 years. We have a natural bias to the West. Like, that is completely normal, and I think it's really mature of him to turn around and be like, look, there's obvious biases going out here, and him explaining all of them before we get into it. And I think that's very honorable and smart, because sometimes our biases can overlook some truths, right? But that's for people who are in charge and not for someone like me to worry about. Does that make sense? But if you're watching these videos, just always remember that there is a little bit of bias there, okay?
I still do my best to present different perspectives here, though.
Yeah.
We don't know for certain how many more reinforcements will arrive, but what we do have an idea about is how many more they would need to secure this area. Thanks to this informative article written by former Admiral James Stavridis for Bloomberg, I recommend you check it out. I put a link in the description and follow him on Twitter, because he's probably the foremost expert when it comes to this mission. He's deployed numerous times as a captain of a guided missile destroyer.
Woo!
He led a carrier strike group in this specific region as a 1-star rear admiral and fought Somali pirates in the 2010s. According to
That's when I was out there, 2010, by the way.
him, he believes this new mission in the Red Sea will be successful so long as they follow basic mission tenets. He points out this region of the Red Sea is massive. It's the size of California, about 1,400 miles, which means even if they sent 20 destroyers, they would have a tough time securing it without good intelligence. This is because it's like trying to cover the entire United States Pacific coast. However, I went and dug up some maps on the actual territory that Houthis control in Yemen. It's about
So Houthi, because I always hear that they're backed by Iran, which is most likely the case because Iran love fucking about with people in the waters around here, don't they? Let's be honest. So now I'm getting that Houthi are from Yemen, but they're backed by Iran. And I just wanted to clarify that, my presumption.
300 miles of territory along the Red Sea, although it is theoretically possible that they could attack from other locations. And given the max range of their missile systems, which is about 200 to 400 miles, this means just about the entire shipping lane does need to be protected. The former admiral points out the mission would benefit from allies joining the task force, like the UAE, who has a nearby port that can support the mission. He points out that working closely with civilian ships is necessary to maximize their limited resources. Private security
It's a good way to get eyes on with everything.
teams on board could also go a long way in helping to counter Houthi attacks and deter them.
Just a quick one on that. There is a lot of British Royal Marines commandos who do maritime security now. I was almost recruited into it. Maritime security. It pays really well, and the lads are really, really good lads. So it's not like they're just civvies with guns, believe me.
But this begs the question, is this mission going to be entirely defensive? Are they just going to be going there and intercepting missiles? Or is it going to have an offensive role as well? Are they going to take the fight to the Houthis? What can we expect when we're expecting? United States security official John Kirby gave some insight into that, stating, quote, "These attacks have to stop. They need to stop. The United States, our allies, and our partners will do what we have to do to counter these threats and to protect these ships." Now, if I were to read in between the lines, it sounds like to me, someone as uncultured as me, that the United States might be preparing to take the fight directly to the Houthis. This lines up with information that the Pentagon has recently moved the CVN-69 Nimitz-class aircraft carrier and its strike group into the Gulf of Aden. The naval commanders were reportedly given options for where to strike Houthi forces, if that decision was made. What that tells me is that there's likely Special Forces operators and JTACs already on the ground inside Yemen, observing Houthi locations right now.
I almost guarantee that's the truth. I feel like, and don't quote me on this, when it comes to Special Forces, we probably know about 3% of what's actually going on with Special Forces. So for us to presume that they may be on the ground in Yemen, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to be there, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Their job would be to help guide air-to-ground bombs from the roughly 65 F-18 Super Hornets that are located on the aircraft carrier nearby. They can surge up to 240 sorties or missions in a single day during non-stop 24-hour emergency conditions. And it's not just me making a wild guess pulling stuff out of my ass here. I'm basing this off the US White House statement to Congress that disclosed Special Forces are already operating on the ground in Yemen against ISIS terrorists. Just so you know, I'm going to be updating this information. It's a fluid situation, so follow me on Instagram at
Cappy Army. Go follow him on Instagram if you want up-to-date stuff. We'll try and stay up-to-date on this channel by watching other people's stuff, and maybe even me giving my opinion like I did when Ukraine kicked off with Russia. Sorry, when Russia kicked off with Ukraine. I will certainly give my opinion on that as well if you want it. Let me know.
At Cappy Army for those updates. So what kind of capabilities do the Houthis have? The Houthis use two different types of anti-ship ballistic missiles, called the Asef and the Tenkil. The Asef, I believe, is the one that's based on the Iranian Fatah 313 missiles. It has a range of about 450 kilometers or
Where are they
270
getting
miles.
these?
But they probably would have to get closer if they want to be certain.
Oh, that literally just said it where they were getting it from then. Iran, the Soviet Union, China. I feel like I don't even need to explain where they got them from. It's the usual culprits.
Closer if they want to be certain to actually hit. Allegedly, this missile uses GPS navigation to track a moving target like a ship. Dozens of their missiles have missed their targets entirely so far, and others have already been intercepted, but it's still concerning that 2 of the missiles did find their target and did strike ships. This munition has about a 300 kilogram warhead or 660 pounds, which is a large munition certainly capable of downing a ship if it hits the right spot.
Yeah.
Houthis also have short-range capabilities in their arsenal. There's the Falak missile, which can hit targets about 140 kilometers away. And according to Odin Yarin and his article, they have an anti-ship homing technology. Part of the capabilities of the coalition warships, though, that are headed to the Red Sea right now include GPS jamming and other countermeasure decoys to fool these kind of Houthi missiles. We don't know for sure how many missiles the Houthis have, but we do know that in 2019, they launched 226 at Saudi Arabia that year, which should give us an idea that they could keep this up into 2024 if they aren't stopped. You might be surprised to learn, Houthis have been
So is Iran really selling this many weapons to them? China and Russia, I feel like, although they're probably selling to them, the majority of these weapons are probably coming via Iran, right? They're probably coming from a third party. Although I do believe that Russia and China are probably supplying them. It's probably a bit more complicated than that. I'm also assuming here big time, so let me know what you think in the comments.
Attacking ships here since 2015. This isn't anything new. With over 40 incidents where they used Chinese C-802 anti-ship cruise missiles, Houthis also fired at U.S. naval vessels in 2016, and the response back then was firing Tomahawk cruise missiles and hitting 3 Houthi radar command stations.
Yeah.
According to Robert Talos, writing for thenationalnews.com, the Houthi missiles are most likely made inside Iran in separate pieces and then smuggled by boat into Yemen, where they're reassembled. Evidence for this comes from a U.S. security briefing.
Oh my god, look at all them weapons. Oh my days.
20, detailing how the Navy had found missile components headed to Yemen. A Houthi official was quoted as saying, quote, "We have capabilities to sink your fleet, your submarines, your warships. The Red Sea will be your graveyard." But what are the Houthis trying to accomplish here? What's their end game, hypothetically? The Houthis have several possible motivations. First, they want to disrupt the global economy as much as possible. Second, they're likely trying to provoke a response from the United States that could lead to a wider regional war. And third, they want to use the attacks as a way to pressure Israel to suspend its ground offensive in Gaza.
It seems like there's a lot of people right now that want a war. And the thing is, if a war kicked off as bad as what these people want it to be, it wouldn't be Gaza and Israel. It wouldn't be Ukraine and Russia. It would be the West versus Russia, China, and quite a lot of the Middle East. And that's terrifying. Because that's not a small war. That's a World War III. That would be massive. In the worst case scenario is nukes gets dropped. No one wants this. These want this. These people want this because they've got not much, obviously they haven't got much to lose and they're happy to fight America and see the downfall of the West. The West has too many guns, too many missiles, too many explosives, too many nukes. Do you know what I mean?
According to former Rear Admiral James Stavridis, more likely explanation is that Houthis are probing for weaknesses to set up future attacks by Iran against Western interests.
Yeah.
He also points out that the assaults will likely cause oil prices to rise, which will benefit Iran and possibly increase Western pressure on Israel to scale back their campaign in Gaza.
Classic.
Houthi leadership made a statement on December 9th, and here's their quote. They said, "If Gaza does not receive the food and medicine it needs, all ships in the Red Sea bound for Israel ports, regardless of nationality, will become a target for our armed forces." Evidence shows it's not just Israeli-linked ships, though. So far, 100 cargo ships have been rerouted. The 12 vessels attacked are linked to over 35 different countries around the world. Here's a
Yeah, so they're basically doing it to everyone. Everyone. And I get that they want supplies into Gaza. That's a very valid point. It's a very valid thing. This is not how you do it. This is not how you do it.
Graphic that I think does a good job of showing the different locations and timeline of the escalation of Houthi attacks over the past month by Damian Simon on Twitter. This is the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and it's the most narrow point. It's only 18 miles or like 29 kilometers wide. What that means, it's basically like your local two-way suburban street that you drive down instead of a 6-lane superhighway. 18 miles might sound like a lot, but for massive cargo ships that can weigh up to 100,000 tons, there's only 2 channels for inbound and outbound traffic. In military terms, this is a choke point or a fatal funnel.
Yeah.
It makes your path predictable and therefore easier to target with anti-ship cruise missiles.
I just feel like if it doesn't de-escalate in Gaza and Israel soon, it's gonna get worse and worse and worse, isn't it? Russia kicking off with Ukraine, Israel kicking off with Gaza. It feels like the tiny little sparks of something that might be massive. Like in 100 years, you'll be reading a textbook and be like, this is how World War III started. It started with what people thought was just small, well, not small. Russia invading Ukraine and the whole situation with Gaza and Israel is not small by any means. But considering a world war, these things should be sorted out before anything else kicks off, and it could definitely spark into something bigger, and it's terrifying, especially as a dad. It's terrifying.
The strait is located right next to Yemen. This vulnerability is why 5 of the world's top shipping companies have decided to take the longer route all the way around Africa and say see you later bye to that. Once these companies announced they would stop risking going through here, traffic through the Red Sea has now dropped by 35%, at least, and cost of insuring ships and cargo has doubled for those willing to venture through.
Yeah.
Those costs are kindly passed on to, you guessed it, you and me, when we purchase things. The reason this hasn't made front page news in the United States yet is likely because many of the ships can still make it to their destination.
And unfortunately, a lot of US news and UK news is filled with unnecessary garbage politics of whose sides can win in the next election when there's actual real world issues going on which are terrifying.
This takes longer and costs more, and no one has yet been killed. If this continues and the attacks aren't stopped, you're going to see gas prices skyrocket and consumer good prices go up as well. But the main countries hurting here is going to be Egypt, who they have 1/4 of their whole economy depends on the transit fees that they earn through the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
15% of Europe's imported goods sail through here as well. The Houthis claim to be doing this to put pressure on Israel's economy.
I wonder if India's doing anything here. India are very close and they're a powerhouse. I wonder if India's... Let me know if anyone knows anything about that.
Which relies on seaborne trade.
They might just be sitting back.
This is kind of a perfect storm, though, right now, is because another shipping lane is in trouble at the same time. A drought in Panama has meant that the Panama Canal doesn't have enough water, which means they've had to cut the number of ships they let through.
Wow.
When it rains, it pours, or that's a bad analogy. The Houthi rebels are backed by Iranian funding and weapon shipments, although Iran publicly denies this. If you ask me, personally, my personal thoughts, I think Iran has learned over the decades that having plausible deniability is important, because when the Iranian Navy planted sea mines in the Gulf of Aden to disrupt free navigation in the 1980s, and they hit a U.S. frigate, the U.S. Navy responded by destroying half of Iran's Navy in Operation Praying Mantis. So if you
Yeah, we watched a video on that.
ask me, Iran learned to use the Houthi rebels to take the heat for them this time.
Yeah.
Although, I should tell you that others claim the Houthis are acting under their own agency. So who is the Houthi movement? They're also known as Ansar Allah, or Supporters of God. They're a Shia faction inside the Yemen civil war. In 2021, the Biden administration took the Houthi faction off the foreign terrorist organization list.
Oh.
They stated their reason for doing this was to ease tensions and help end the war there. But after the attacks on civilian cargo ships, there's now increased pressure to return the group back to the terror list. During the Yemen civil war,
I mean, at this point, they should. It's a no-brainer.
The Houthis gained control over the Al Hudaydah port in a major... We're going to have to wait to see how effective U.S. naval power will be, how large the coalition grows, and what effect the Israeli campaign in Gaza will have on all this. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. Follow me at Cappy Army on Instagram.
I'll let him finish.
Signing off this net. Time now.
Okay, so... Firstly, fantastic video from Task and Purpose. As always, they have great videos. Link in the description down below. This whole situation is just... it's exhausting, isn't it? It's exhausting because it seems like it's never de-escalating. It seems like it's always getting worse, and there's nothing slowing it down. We've got Iran backing Houthi now. Houthi pissing about, taking out civilian ships to disrupt the economy. They know the US, the UK, most of the West relies on that oil. right? And so they know messing about will cause more of a reaction from the West, right? One thing we know is you don't mess with US and their oil, let's be honest. So it's going to cause more of a reaction, which means if the US and Iran start kicking off, before you know it, Russia's like, what's going on over here? We've got Iran in Gaza, we've got Ukraine, and now we've got Iran and the US. They've got a reason to step up somewhere else. Then China are like, what's going on? I want to take advantage of this. It just the boulder just gets bigger as it rolls down the hill, and it's not good. It is not good. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Fantastic video. If you want me to check out more of this stuff, let me know by commenting, like, and subscribe. All that good stuff as usual. Until next time, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.